Livestrong Quilt is a pattern that you can purchase. It's $29, but you get so much with the pattern. You get the 60 by 60 inch layout behind me. You get the negative space layout behind me that goes into a twin, full, queen, and king size. And this just dropped. You get the foundation paper piecing layout that is 20 inches by 20 inches. So, and the leisure quilt block is right here. Isn't it so cute? That little leisure quilt block. And this is the size of the leisure quilt block in the standard size Live Well Livestrong quilt, in either the classic version, the negative space version, or the bed runner version. So we have so many options for you, and this is a skill building process of a quilt where you have a sampler quilt and you build your quilting skills as you go along in the process. So let me know where you're from. I'm Deanna from Stitches Quilting. This is the Live Well Livestrong Sew Along. We have with it a course. We have with it kits that you can purchase if you're interested in different colorways that we have. But it's a great way to use up your fabric scraps and pull fabrics from there. Hello, Amanda. Hi, Angie. Hi, Belle. It's so good to see you guys. I just love seeing you guys each week. So, but we are working about, and that's the other thing about the Live Well Livestrong quilt. It's a quilt about health and wellness for women. And today we're going to talk about why leisure is important in your lives for health and wellness. But let's go ahead and get started with how to construct this quilt block. And it's such a basic quilt block. Our very first quilt block that we did this last week was called Fuel. And Fuel is just a basic half square triangle, but I showed you guys how to make this in the regular version and the foundation paper piecing version. So let's go ahead and get on to the pinwheel version. And then we're going to do the paper piecing for the pinwheel. So let's switch the camera view so that you can see my cutting surface right here. And hold on for just a moment. I need to change this camera a little bit. You guys, I thought I would reset all of my camera's views and everything else. Oh, I don't want to ruin this. Hold on, I'm going to have to loosen it just a tiny bit. Sorry, guys. Okay, so I reset all my cameras so that everything would perform really well and have a good fresh start. Okay, so in the instructions for the pattern, which you have right here, you can purchase this, get a PDF download, or get the print copy. There are instructions. I put mine into a 3-ring binder, and using my paper clip that I taught you guys how to make, I'm going into the instructions for the leisure quilt block. So the leisure quilt block, it has you, go ahead and put that quilt block back in there. It has you cut some yellow triangles right here. It has you cut some squares. And when you cut the squares, you're then going to cut them down so they're in triangle shapes too. So let's go ahead and do that. So we need 4 pieces of the red and 4 pieces of the white. So the instructions tell you exactly how to cut this, but I thought I'd do a little illustration while we're doing this. And you guys, I've been working so hard on the technical side of the website. So you can see I just went from point to point on this square, and then I cut it along. And I'm going to go right over here. So this is how the pattern instructs you to cut these triangles. So you're just going to go from side to side. Then you've got 4 red triangles, and you have 4 white triangles. So it's pretty easy to cut and to get in there. So let me go ahead and show you how to construct this. So one of the things that I like to do is I like to use little design boards, but I don't have mine handy right now at this very moment. So we're going to lay this out. So this is something I always do with each of my quilt blocks, is I usually lay it out so I can get an idea of what this looks like as I'm constructing the quilt block. Right like that. So we're really putting this together as a segment of squares. So this is 1 square unit. It's 3 triangles as 1 square unit. So let's go ahead and lay this one down. And, oh, this actually goes up here. And these go right like that. So we want this variation of, so it looks like a spinning pinwheel block. And leisure is so important in our lives, you guys. If we just work so hard, we are going to exhaust ourselves to the point that we are not going to have, oop, I got to spin this again, that we don't have leisure in our lives. And it is so important to have that. I've got to put that one right there and then place this one right here. So we need to unplug every so often, hopefully every day, and then add some leisure into our lives. So you can see here is the sample quilt block that's in the quilt. And this is how we're going to construct it. So we're going to take it down to this small square unit and construct it that way. Now, whenever I have cutting instructions for you, sometimes I have you do your triangles just slightly a little bit bigger. So whenever you're matching your triangles for quilting, I always recommend matching at the 90-degree angle first. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and put this in my sewing machine, and I'm going to stitch this at 1/4 inch stitch length. So let me go ahead and switch to the other sewing machine view. So you can see I've got these together. I have them matched up here at this 90-degree angle. I'm laying it down into my sewing machine, and oh, my sewing machine is not on. That is so funny. We'll let this turn on, but I am going to string feed these. So I am going to continue to get these ready to feed into the sewing machine. And that way I am improving the amount of time here. So for example, I obviously, when I cut this triangle, this one is slightly smaller than that. Can you see I've got a little bit of a red edge? But if you match up this little triangle over here, you're going to have a better outcome. So let's go ahead and lay those down. So that's why I kind of encourage you to always match up your triangle by this 90-degree angle. And that way, if something is slightly askew, it won't be too off. All right, so let's go ahead and feed this through the sewing machine. Wait, I moved some things around here. So let me make sure my pedal is plugged in. It is. Hello, little sewing machine, we need you. That is so funny. Let's go ahead and just flip that off and on again real fast. And make sure my pedal is plugged in all the way around. I rearranged some things. Doggone it. Here we go. Okay, back in. Turn that baby on and off. Okay, it's coming on. Some of these sewing machines are so electronic, aren't they? And they have music when they turn on. It's just crazy. Your grandsons want to get home because the rain is interfering with the camper's internet. Oh, that is so funny, Lynette. That is so cute. I'm glad you're out camping with your grandsons, though. It's so important to have great things to be doing. Okay. So, and healthy things, and that's a great leisure activity, is to actually go camping with your loved ones. I love it, and that you're pausing from life to play with each other, and it just feels really good, and you feel rejuvenated after some leisure. Sometimes we work so hard that we don't give ourselves, I went ahead and put my needle down so it's down all the time. We don't give ourselves the time that we need to actually reboot. And we just work so hard. And even if we are giving ourselves time to reboot, we are actually feeling guilty about it. So we need to give ourselves permission to take that time for leisure in our lives. Okay, let's go ahead and pull this up. So I have string fed these little triangles. Let's go ahead and I'm going to switch to the other camera view. And we are going to now press these open. So when I'm pressing these, I'm going to want to press the fabric to the darker side. So what I usually do is I just put the lighter side fabric on the back, and then I will open these up with my iron, and I pull my ironing mat over next to my sewing machine, so I'm not moving over to a large ironing board and have to move and shift too much. You definitely want to press and sew as you go, so you will have a really beautiful finished project if you do that. Okay, so let's go ahead, put this back into our little layout here. So let's add this back into as we're building out our leisure pinwheel block. So you can see here that we're now going to sew this one right here, right to this unit. And let me just see if they have if they're squaring up on here. No, but that's okay. So now, once again, we are going to layer this on here, and I'm going to string feed these back into my sewing machine. And we're gonna go ahead and trim off our little dog ears just after a little bit. Once we get things kind of stitched together and we know that everything is in the right spot. So let's go ahead and feed these through. All right, let's layer this one here. And once again, I'm matching this up. I'm really trying to make sure that I've got a good match for that. You can see, and I will feed that through. Boy, my sewing machine sounds a little squeaky. Almost like it needs to be oiled. But I don't think this kind of sewing machine needs to be oiled. But boy, maybe I need to clean things from, pandemic sewing, right? Haven't we been just using our sewing machines so very much? All right, let's go ahead and just feed that in and feed it through. Oh, squeaky, squeaky. It's almost like the sound of like fingernails going down a chalkboard. Yuck. Okay, so we're folding that, layering that again, matching these 90-degree angles, and we will feed this through. And then we've got all that done. All we have to do now is sew together 4 squares. Kind of went a little wonky right there, but look at that. Went just slightly a little wonky, but that's okay. So I'm gonna go ahead, I fed those together. That makes it a little bit faster. Once again, we are going to press these open, and I'm gonna press my fabric to the darker side. So this red is the darkest fabric. I don't want that red to bleed through the light yellow. It's such a pretty yellow. This fabric is actually a solid fabric from Riley Blake Confetti Cottons called Sunshine, and I love to use Sunshine in my quilting projects, right? So Sunshine, and what's cute is the actual white in here that we use is actually called Cloud. So it's just a little bit of a softer white. Okay, so now what I want you to do is I want you to come back here, and this is where we can kind of trim off. We want to examine the size of our squares, and we're going to want to trim off these excess little dog ears because we don't want to put too many of those into the center. All right, so let's go ahead and look at this. We're going like this way. Wait, that way, and then this way. Isn't it funny how we sit here and we turn things around? Where's our other block? Oh, that's so funny. Okay, here we go. And here we go. And I always am looking at my layouts of everything I do. Now what we're going to do is we're going to sew these two together, and then sew the whole seam together in there. But we're going to also want to match our points. But this is why it's important that we're wanting to go ahead and trim off these dog ears here in the center. So we're going to want to take our rotary blades, and we're definitely going to want to make sure that those dog ears, because we do not want that much bulk in the center of our block. When we piece our center, we want that center to match up with the points. And the more bulk that you have in there for fabric, the more that you're going to have it agitated. Or let's see. Let's go ahead and lay this back down. Here we go. So you can see why trimming off your dog ears is actually important. All right. And I want to show you one other thing. We're going to really want our outside 1/4 inch seams to match up. Now, the Live Well, Live Strong course, I'm giving you guys a little bit more instruction, but there is an actual course for you guys. And the course will go into more detail. We're going to do classes by Zoom. And oh my, I've been working on the Stitches Quilting website. And oh, it's actually, I've gotten rid of a lot of little bugs that were going on with logging in and placing your orders. And oh, I'm just so happy. I can't even tell you. Once again, let's open this up and press our quilt blocks. Now, what is really, oh, that one didn't quite work right there, but we'll go back and fix that. So I'm kind of doing this fast, but when we're in the Zoom class, we're going to go nice and slow. That doesn't look right, right, ladies? I stitched something wrong there. Got too excited. Okay, let's go ahead and pick that out. So picking things out is not a problem. Just go ahead and give it a good little pick there. So here's this one right here. I sewed that incorrectly. You need to sew it this way, right along that side. So let's go ahead and line those up. And I want to show you another thing to watch for. It is absolutely critical when you're sewing your quilt blocks and quilting, or not critical, but that you always have your outside seam allowances. So let me hold this up closer to you. So do you see this little bit of an extra seam allowance on each one of these points? These are your 1/4 inch outside seam allowances. So when you're squaring up your block, you want to make sure that you don't trim off your 1/4 inch seam allowances. So this one right here is not sewn correctly because I don't have a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So we're going to actually fix that very quickly. And I'm actually glad that that mistake happened so that we can go ahead and get that fixed. That once again doesn't look right, you guys. I guess it is. No, what else did I sew wrong? Here, hold on. Oh my gosh, I sewed it wrong again. Okay, you guys, I apologize. We're gonna probably have to redo this little video here. Let's go ahead and unpick this. And since I use Aurifil thread, and I know what the strength of my thread is versus the strength of the quality of the fabric that I'm using. Now, holy cow. I know what I did here is I went ahead and I matched this up according to the little dog ear that I trimmed. But let's go ahead and trim the right dog ear off is what I keep doing. And whenever I unpick something, I also try to pull out my small threads in between, so I don't have to see them mashed in with the new threads that I'm putting on top. Okay, this one to this one, and we're sewing along this seam. Holy cow, you guys. Let's not get this wrong. Now, in the Live Well, Live Strong course, it is $150. The course price is going to increase when we get into 2021, because what we are doing, what you guys are going to do with me is build the course out with me. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at this. That looks perfect. We have an outside 1/4 inch seam here. We have an inner 1/4 inch seam here. We need to fix this outside 1/4 inch seam. So let's go ahead and unpick this. And this is why when you're constructing your blocks, this is actually a good video to show you guys mistakes that can be made and when you need to unpick and repick. And don't be overwhelmed by sewing something incorrectly. I mean, you can see me doing it, right? Okay, this goes right here. And no, this goes right here and right here. Now, I need to make sure when I'm stitching this that it is for sure covering that entire space. So if I need to pin, I will pin. All right, so remember, fabric does have a cotton fabric particularly, and a good quality cotton fabric. I'm going to pin this to make sure that it is absolutely matching my 1/4 inch seam. All right, my seam allowance, because as I stitch over that intersection of these fabrics right here, then that's going to be. So when I was actually stitching this, I was stretching this side of the triangle too much that it wasn't matching that side of the triangle. So let's stitch that again. Triangles can be tricky, but don't let them overwhelm you. Remember, the triangle angles do have a stretch to them. And so it makes it a little less predictable. So let's open this up. Okay, perfect. Well, we're a little short right over here, but I can make that absolutely work. Okay, so let's go ahead and press this and press this. But you can see I've got my seams matched up really accurately right here. Right here, that could be a little bit more accurate. But I do have a seam allowance over here that I can match that triangle to. And I'm going to join these together and match these 8 triangles here in the circle. Or I guess it's 8. So we're going to go ahead and pick this up. And on here, let's see, maybe I should have used a different color thread for you. But on here, I am going to open this up. Can you see that little set of triangles right there? I'm going to layer this, and I'm going to nest my seams, which I'm going to put one seams over to this direction, the other seam over to that direction. I am also going to make sure that the points right here are matching up between this point right here and that point right over there. So I'm actually going to stick a pin in it. And when I look at this side, let me get rid of this extra thread that's sitting right there, because I'm going to show you this to match your points. And that's one of the neatest things about this quilt is the skill building opportunities that you have. So you can see right here, we have an intersection of threads. We have one intersection going straight up, and we have another intersection going at that 90-degree angle, the 45-degree angle. We are going to slip our pin right where that intersection is. You know what, there's like a little bit of glue or something on the tip of that pin. Oh, that's a very short pin. Okay, so we're going to put our pin in the intersection. Can you see how that came out right at the tip of that? Because that is what we are going to want to actually, that is what we're actually wanting to sew on and do. Okay, I have that coming through there. Now I'm going to slip this pin right up through there. I went through that intersection right over there, and I'm going to come in on this intersection, and I'm going to match these up. All right, so I slipped it through those intersections. I'm going to stick this pin right straight through it so that I know that seam is going to match. I'm using that as a positioning pin. I'm now going to use my other pins to actually match this up. So this is how I match points. And this is something, and once again, this doesn't seem to want to come over exactly right. Remember, you're cutting triangles, and not all of your triangles are absolutely perfect. So I'm going to want to stretch that fabric over to match this side. So I am for sure going to match a 1/4 inch seam allowance over here. So I will have my existing 1/4 inch outside seam allowance. We cannot take that for granted when you're piecing quilt blocks. So now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to match this right here. So let me stick a pin in it. I'm going to match that right there. And then I'm going to make sure, because look, that's not a natural match right there. We're constructing triangles. I'm going to give this a little bit of a stretch, not much, but I'm going to make sure it's going to actually match up with the corner so that my seam allowance is actually going to be accurate on the sides of the quilt block. Not just matching in the middle, but I'm going to have 1/4 inch seam allowances with this. So let's go ahead and put this through the sewing machine, and we'll see, then we'll open it up. And of course we're sewing live. So when you sew live, there's always, I need to take my positioning needle out. Remember, I put it through all those diagonal lines. I'm going to take that out. I'm going to keep those seams nested right there. Let's go ahead. But this is how I pin my pins, pin my quilt block as I'm piecing. And I'm wanting to stitch over that intersection of that 90-degree angle and the 45-degree angle. And then bring this down and around. And I'm going to get that over so I've got my outside 1/4 inch seam allowances. These were some great mistakes to make. So you can see I've stitched that, and you can see, which this is important right here, that I've intersected, not sure you can see that super well, but I've intersected the intersection right here, or I've gone slightly above it, okay? And same over on this side. You can see these lines are intersected. If that's the case, the points should match in the middle. Let's go ahead and take the pins out. And let's open this up. And let's do the big reveal. That's a pretty good match. Let's bring that over, switch the camera view, and go back to our overhead piecing. I am actually going to set my seams here and just kind of lay that down. I need to trim off all my other dog ears. So the dog ears help you when you're piecing it together, but you don't need the dog ears later on. And the pattern talks about that. Now this, I've got like a little bit of a lump. This is a seam that I could actually press open if I wanted to, or not. Either way, it doesn't matter. Now let's examine this quilt block. Okay, so now you can see I've got my points matching in the middle, and I made sure I still have all of my outside seam allowances, okay? And when I square up this quilt block now, which every single time you make a quilt block, it has instructions in there for squaring up your quilt block. You're going to want to put this on your mat, so the pattern says the exact size to do of what size your quilt block should be. You're going to want to lay that down. I've got some excess threads kind of hanging out, and I'm going to just very gently take off those dog ears and trim up this quilt block. I'm going to rotate it again and go ahead and trim that off, get off any extra threads that are coming off this block. And I can see that this pretty much came out exactly the size that I needed it. If for some reason your quilt block did not come out, one thing that we're going to go over is how to block your quilt blocks. Okay, I have a couple more dog ears to trim off inside this, and because I don't need those extra threads or those extra fabric when I'm matching these seams to the next block that's next to it. And actually these two match like this, and these two would be sewn together. But when we sew it together, we need to make sure that that 1/4 inch seam allowance matches over to this quilt block. We don't want to lose that seam allowance. In fact, I might stitch that together just to show you. Let me press this quilt block. It got a little smushed. Okay, so as you're piecing your quilt blocks together, and that's why this is a really good illustration to just understand that you need to match that outside seam allowance. Okay, so I'm going to come over here, and on this side, I'm using my side that has the shortest seam allowance right here. This one is a little bit, it's a little bit less than 1/4 inch. So when I match that up to this block, I'm going, and I stitch this together, I'm going to do the leisure quilt block right side up, because when I do this stitching, I'm going to want to make sure that I intersect that intersection right there. And as long as I have stitch across where that intersection is, then I know that I will have that matched up. So I could pin this, but I'm going to just run this through so that you guys can see that. And I'm going to make sure that this is all matching, because I know this other quilt block is good. And then you can see right here, let's open this up. Once again, it's a live video, so it's always fun to see what happens. And bam! My outside 1/4 inch seam allowance allowed me to match that up. So do you see why when you're constructing your blocks, you need to make sure that you're taking into consideration the inside matching points, but you're keeping your future outside 1/4-inch seam allowances available so that when you match it up with your other blocks, it's going to look absolutely stunning and beautiful. Okay, now, let me see what time it is. Oh, whoops, sorry. Let's go back to the front video. Okay, we need to do the paper piecing version of the leisure quilt block. But I feel like this has been a really long video. So I think I'm going to come back on Monday and we are going to do the leisure quilt block. I really wanted to go over your piecing methods. And a lot of these piecing methods are tips and tricks that you're going to use with your foundation paper piecing. So remember how small this one is. Oh, here it is. See how small this is? It's actually, I think, 2 inches. Let's measure real fast. Let's use our little ruler. But those piecing tips that I just gave you, yes, it's you can see 2 inches of that. So it's taking this quilt block into a 2-inch quilt block. Isn't that so fun? So, but what we had here is we were matching points in the middle, but yet keeping our outside 1/4-inch seam allowances available for the next piecing part. Now, the leisure quilt block, the paper piecing pattern is available. It comes with the original quilt pattern. When you go purchase it, all of those are going to be available for download instantaneously. If you want me to ship you a print pattern, it's just a little bit more, and then you just put that in as a request. There's 2 options, PDF only or PDF and print. So on Monday, we're going to come back and I'm going to show you how to foundation paper piece the leisure quilt block. Because this one, it's a little tricky and we're going to get it done. And I'm going to go over the routine of how to get this and know that you're matching your seams and putting the right sides of fabric together on the back of the paper. And I'm going to have some really fun, quick tips and tricks on constructing this. So this is an important quilt block, an important video to go through on matching your points in the center, keeping your outside seam allowances. You guys, I'm so excited that we're making this together. Remember to add leisure to your routine today. Take a deep breath. Enjoy yourself. Enjoy a quiet moment to refuel yourself so that you have the energy that you need to go and tackle the things that you need to do. Those leisure actually adds to our ability to have resilience. And now is a time when we need that resilience. So be sure to add leisure to your routine. There are leisure worksheets for you. There are fuel worksheets for you at the Stitches Quilting website. Purchase the course. We're going to go through all this through a Zoom video with each other. So hurry, run over to the Stitches Quilting website. And we've got, in fact, let me activate so that you can go ahead and just say, show me where to go for the pattern or for the course. And it will automatically send that to you through Facebook and through YouTube. Look down in the video course description. Be sure to subscribe, turn on your post notifications. We've got tons of information coming. We're going to be making this quilt. It's a great quilt to build your quilt skills and to work on your life as a person and as a human being. And we're doing all of that through slow incremental growth, because that's the kind of growth that sticks. All right, love you guys. I'll see you guys a little bit later. Love you guys so much. All of you guys just mean so much to me. You are just very, very important to me. And oh, Dolores, I'm so glad that it's working on YouTube. The chat is working. Dolores helped me fix that. And there's been several of you guys, like Amanda helped me fix some pain points of the website. Lynette helped me fix some little pain points on the website. So hurry, rush over to that website. Help me make sure it's perfectly right, because I've got an email to send out to 17,000 people on my email list. And I want to make sure it's working before I send that email. So you guys, please help me out. Pop over to the website, see if everything's working. Let me know. And let me know what improvements you have too. I did a whole bunch. Love you. Bye. Ta-ta for now.